Hello everybody and welcome to this webinar from Adovation. A few weeks ago we had a webinar with the same purpose as today, and that is how to work smarter in IFS applications. Some of you who joined last week or last time will probably recognize some of the functions, but we will have some new examples how to work smarter in IFS applications. During the webinar, you are welcome to send your questions to us in the webinar chat by email. So please do that and we will try to reply those questions in the end of the session. First of all, we will like to present ourselves. I am Arve Myhre. I am an advisor here in Drammen in Adovation. And with me, I have
Matilda. I work as a business consultant at the Stockholm office. And I also want to mention that we have Sigrid, who's organizing this webinar with us as well. I will move on to the agenda. So first of all, we will have a short update on Adovation. Most of you might recognize these, but it's good to have a basic knowledge on what we do at Adovation. Then we will go through how to adjust screens and menus with the focus on detail views. Then we will move over to how to make the registration process more efficient in overview forms. And in the end, we will have a brief introduction to custom events and menus. This is a topic in itself, so we will only introduce the functions briefly for now, and then we might come back to that in another webinar later. Back to you, Al.
Okay, first a short update on Adovation. Adovation started as a company 12 years ago, and we have experienced strong growth ever since. And we are now more than 100 employees, and we have 8 offices all over Scandinavia and also on Sri Lanka. Adovation was awarded the IFS Gold Channel Partner, or we were registered as a partner in 2010, and we have been a Gold Channel Partner ever since. We have been awarded the prestigious Gazelle Award 4 times, and we are continuously investing on employees, competence, and R&D. Now, we would also like you to follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook for important business information and IFS related information. So please follow us on the social medias.
Okay, so a short background to the topic in this webinar. As you know, the views in IFS applications are quite large, and it can be time-consuming to navigate in them. And there are a lot of simple tools to customize your specific profiles in IFS. And today we will focus on small tips and tricks to save time in your registration process. So basically the purpose is to make your working day a little bit more efficient. And I also want to mention that we're doing the demo in applications 10, but most of the tools are available also in earlier versions of IFS applications. All right.
Okay, today I will talk about how to adjust the layout in your views, how to adjust and hide columns, how you can define mandatory fields, adjust menus, and add the format shortcuts. We will also look at how to use the magic functionality behind Control K. So here is a typical example of a detail view. And we see that the mandatory fields are marked with purple or pink color, sorry. I'm not colorblind. We will look how to adjust the layout in these forms. Yes, we will also see how to use the right mouse button to define mandatory fields and make your layout even more efficient for your work. We will look how to adjust and hide columns in a detail view. It was probably some of the same information in the previous seminar that Matilda showed us this in another view, but this can also be done in the detail view that we will focus on today. Shortcuts are very important for efficient work, and we will learn how to add a shortcut and how to adjust the layout of this and format them so they are more personal for you. And then the Control K button. If you know how a value starts, but you don't know the whole name or the whole data field, you can use Control K while you register your data. Okay, then we will go into IFS. So if you make
center.
Thank you. So hopefully you see my screen now. We use the customer order view. This should be very common for many of you, we think, so we use this as an example. If I make a new entry here in the customer order, I see that in the head, oh, sorry, I shouldn't add the lines yet. Here, I see now that the mandatory fields are marked with this color here: customer, coordinator, order type, currency, and delivery address. They are pink. If I want to change what fields are mandatory, I can simply click right mouse button in the head. And after a short break of thinking, you can press the property tab. Here you open the object properties, and I press the mandatory tab, and I see all the fields available in this screen. So if I, for instance, want priority and reference as mandatory fields, I can press priority and reference like this, and the apply button. Then I see that the color should change here from white to pink. If I want the screen to be as default, I can always press the default button. So if I regret this, I press this default and apply, and I see that they are no longer mandatory. All the things you do here will be stored in your personal profile, and you can change it anytime you enter this view. So if I want to change the layout, I see that I have many fields of data here that I never use. I would like to remove them. So then I choose the Layout tab, and I always have to remember to switch on the Use Customized Screen Layout. I highlight this, and then I can move or remove all the fields in this view. So instead of having it mandatory, I would like to remove the priority field. So if I press this one or untag the priority, I see that it is removed from my view. The same with the reference and the reference name. So I don't want any of these 4 fields in my view. I press apply, and then it is like this the next time I enter this view. This could be dangerous if you remove some of the fields that should be there, so you can always reset the layout to the original. So if I press this view default layout, I get a suggestion here that these fields should be included, and I simply reset the layout. So if you regret, it's always an easy way back to the original. Okay. In this field, we also have a lot of columns in the detail view, and the same as we went through last time. You can use the column chooser by right mouse button here in the heading, and you can use the column chooser, and you can hide columns from this view. So maybe a poor example, but if you choose all these and hide them, you press the left arrow, and they are in this hidden column view, and press OK. See that you have only these fields left. This you can also organize, moving them left and right when you have this table in this arrow. So if I want to go back to the original, I reset the current view, and then I got all my fields back. Okay, the last thing I wanted to show you was how to use this Ctrl-K button. So if I open a customer order that I have already saved the header information, I am about to put in the order lines. So when I choose the new button, I immediately go to the sales part number, and this is probably something you don't remember, but if you have hundreds of sales parts, it's difficult to remember the part number. So normally use the F8 to populate and then search inside the table, but it could be a lot of information here, so an easier way to do this could be that you know that the sales part starts with the letter C, and if you then press Ctrl and the letter K, you will immediately decrease your list of values to the one that fits your search here. So here you have 3 parts, sales parts, that starts with a C. So that is what I wanted to show you with the registration. And now a short look at how to add shortcuts. I then open my navigator and find the view that I want to use as a shortcut. And if this is, for instance, a purchase order, I press the right mouse button here in the navigator and add the purchase order to the shortcut list, like this. When I close the navigator, this shortcut should be placed in the bottom as a purchase order here. I can move it by holding the left mouse button in for a second, and then I can move it to the top, and I can arrange it and change color, change the icon for it if I would like another icon to be viewed. So I make it red like this, like a package, and it's here on top of my shortcut list. Yes, I think that was what I wanted to show you. So then back to you, Matilda. I will make you a presenter again.
Great. Thank you. So then I will move to talking about more efficient registration in overview forms. So we will look at freeze panes and also there how to define mandatory fields, how to use the function search and replace, and the function copy and paste. And also in the end, I will show you how to define new record after to create new records automatically after a specific field. So first of all, in all the overview forms, there is a functionality of freezing panes. So since we have so much information and a lot of columns in all our overview forms, it could be good to keep some of the key data in the picture always, just like you do in Excel. So it is possible to freeze certain columns so that they're always shown while you scroll back and forth. Also in the overview forms, it is possible to define new mandatory fields. So for example, if you use the functionality of finding the perfect location, then you might need to have the width, height, and depth on your inventory locations. Those are not mandatory in standard, but it's really easy to make them mandatory in your profile. Then I want to show you the search and replace functionality. So instead of going line by line, it's really easy to say that you want to find all the lines with a specific value. So for example, 0, and replace it with 15. So if I want to add an offset on my prices, as in this example. Another smart functionality is the copy and paste. So instead of adding all lines again that you might have reused somewhere, you can just mark your lines, copy object, then go to the new form and paste it. So this is possible, of course, if it's the same table. So in this example, I'm using the price list, where I have added a lot of parts previously on a price list, and now I'm creating a new one. And then I can just mark the parts that I want to add from my old price list. And the last thing that I will show you is the new record after functionality. So it is possible in these multi-registration forms to define which value I entered last. And if I then tab, then a new record will automatically be created, instead of either having to tab all the way to the end of the form or to manually press the plus and add a new line. And I will show you this in the application as well. So first of all, looking at the inventory location form, here we have the same properties choice in the RMB and the header here, as Ava showed before in the detailed views. So if I press the mandatory tab, it's possible to define additional mandatory fields also in these overview forms. So I just mark the fields that I want as mandatory and apply. Also, another functionality here is the new record after. So same place, RMB properties and behavior. There is a checkbox called new record after. So if I tick that one, I can choose which is the last value that I always enter when I'm creating new inventory locations. So for example, if I choose location group, I press apply and OK. And if I then add a new record here, I'll just add something. And then I tab, and a new line is automatically created. So this is really good if you normally work in a multi-registration form and just add new lines. I'll cancel that. Next thing that I wanted to show was the search and replace. So as the example in my PowerPoint, I'm on the sales part base prices here. And I might want to add an offset on my prices. So the thing that I do is that I just use RMB, edit, find and replace. And then I choose the replace tab. And I want to find the values of 0, and I want to replace it with 15. Here I can choose to mark specific rows, and then if I only want to replace those, I just press the selected rows only. Otherwise, I would just use replace all. That's a really easy functionality to use. This is probably a good example to also show the freezing of the panes. So here I have a lot of fields, and I might want to scroll back and forth to see the different prices. But I always want to have my site and my sales part number still in my view so that I know which part I'm looking at. So I just RMB in the header here and freeze column. And then you can see this green line here marking which columns that are frozen. And now when I scroll back and forth, I still see the sales part and the base price site. The last thing I wanted to show you was the copy and paste. So if I have a price list, then I can just mark the lines that I want to copy, use the RMB, edit, copy objects. Then I'll go to my new price list, RMB, edit, and paste objects. And then the same parts are added really efficiently instead of me having to add each of the parts manually. Okay, we'll go back to the PowerPoint. Last topic of this webinar, as I mentioned in the agenda, wanted to introduce the custom menu and custom event functionalities. So custom menus, it's basically creating your own RMBs. So if you normally want to go and check on some customer data when you're creating a customer order, then it's really easy to create a RMB to the customer from the customer order. So basically what you need to know to create a custom menu is from which form you are going. So in the example that I mentioned, I'm on the customer order. To which form you want to go, and that's the customer form. And based on which data, which value do you want to transfer to this new window, which is then customer ID in this case. And this can be really good if you, if you normally double check some data when you're doing some registration, for example. So instead of having to copy the customer ID and then open the customer form and paste it there, you can just do that in one go and skip a couple of steps. Custom events, that's when an action should create another action. So for example, when a customer order is delivered, then we always want to send an email to the coordinator of that order, so the one that was creating the order. Then it's possible to define that when that happens, an email is sent. So what you need to know is also like what's happening. So a customer order is that delivered, and then what you want to happen when that has occurred. And this is also a really good thing, partly to increase efficiency. So here you also skip steps instead of having to go in and check which orders are set to delivered and then inform whoever's the coordinator. Then that just happens automatically. It can also be really good to ensure data quality. So for example, if you update a parameter on an inventory part, if you change the status, for example, then that might then you might also have to update additional parameters on other places in the system. And to ensure that that always happens, when you change the status, you can create a custom event instead of doing all those steps manually. This can be very easy and very complex. So we should probably keep this as its own webinar sometime in the future. Okay, back to you, Ave.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Matilda. Then we are finished with today's presentation, and we have only a short summary left. We have now today and on our previous webinar shown you how to adjust and tailor your views to make your registration more efficient. And as you hopefully have seen, it is quite easy to make your IFS applications more personal, and you are enabled to work even smarter with these tips and tricks. We hope you have found it interesting, and we are now ready to go into to look at the questions, and yeah, we will try to reply to you these questions that have come in. So thank you.